If you have ever looked around at your life and thought, this can't be it, you are in the right place. This is Flying Upstream, the podcast for people who refuse to live on autopilot. I'm your host, Kristin Medeiros. Each week, I sit down with people who questioned the rules, challenged the expectations, and chose a different path. Not because it was easy, but because it was honest. We talk about the moments that broke them open, the decisions that scared them, and the lives they built when they stopped doing what they were told and started listening to themselves. If you are done following the crowd and ready to trust your own way forward, stay with me. Let's fly upstream. Free spirits, welcome back to Flying Upstream. Today is just me. No guest, no interview, just a conversation I've been circling for a long time and one I finally felt ready to speak out loud. And even saying that feels ironic because the whole point of this episode is about choosing yourself before you feel ready. This came up because lately I keep noticing how many people around me are waiting. And I don't mean waiting in a passive way, like resting or trusting timing. I mean waiting in that tense, uncomfortable way where something inside you is quietly tapping you on the shoulder and you keep telling it, not now. Waiting until you feel confident, waiting until you feel certain, waiting until you feel justified, waiting until someone else gives you a nod of approval that makes it feel safe. And the thing is, I recognize that because I lived it for a long time, longer than I want to admit. For most of my life, I believed readiness was a feeling you earned. I believed confidence came first and action came later. I believed that once I felt sure enough, then I would move. But that order almost never happens in real life. Every meaningful shift I have made happened before I felt ready. And at a time, I did not frame it that way. I framed it as stress, as confusion, as restlessness, as something being off that I could not name. I want to take you back for a moment. I grew up with a very clear definition of success: get good grades, be smart, do what is expected, go to college, get a good job, build a stable life, do not rock the boat. That path was never presented as optional. It was presented as responsible. And I followed it. I did well in school. I learned how to be agreeable. I learned how to succeed within systems. I learned how to make myself palatable. And for a long time, it worked. On paper, my life looked fine, even good. I was doing what I was supposed to do. I had checked the boxes. But somewhere along the way, something quiet started happening. A feeling I could not explain kept showing up. It was not dramatic. It was not out loud. It was just this low hum that would not go away. This is not it. Not in a dissatisfied way, not in a spoiled or ungrateful way, just a deep knowing that something was missing, even though I could not articulate what that something was. At first, I ignored it. I told myself I was lucky. I told myself not to complain, that everyone feels restless sometimes. But that voice kept returning, and it did not show up with answers. It did not show up with clarity. It did not say quit or start or change this exact thing. It just kept asking questions. What if there's another way to live? What if success does not look like this? What if you are allowed to want something different? That voice was inconvenient. It did not fit neatly into my life. It didn't offer a plan, and I didn't trust it. So I waited. I waited for confidence to arrive. I waited for certainty. I waited for someone else to say, yes, you are right. This makes sense. And during that waiting, something interesting happened. The voice did not disappear, but it did get quieter. Not because it was wrong, but because I kept dismissing it. This is something I see all the time now. People assume that when that inner voice fades, it means they missed their chance or it was just a phase. But often it fades because it learned it was not welcome. Choosing yourself does not usually begin with bold action. It begins with honesty, honest noticing, honest listening, and that can be deeply uncomfortable. For me, one of the clearest moments came when I had what people call a midlife crisis. And I want to normalize that term for a second because it is often framed as a joke or a breakdown. But what it really was for me was a reckoning. I realized that the values I was raised with were not the values I wanted to pass on to my children. I realized that chasing approval and external markers of success had shaped my choices more than I wanted to admit. I remember sitting down with that realization and feeling completely unmoored. I didn't know what the alternative was. I just knew I could not keep going the same way. And here's the part no one talks about enough. When you choose yourself before you feel ready, nothing around you changes right away. There's no immediate relief, there's no applause, and certainly no guarantee. You make an internal decision, and the external world keeps moving exactly as it was. That gap is brutal. That gap is where doubt creeps in and where your mind starts negotiating with you. Maybe you overreacted. Maybe this is just a phase. Maybe you should wait a little longer, but something has shifted, even if you cannot see it yet. After that internal shift, I started noticing how often I was saying yes out of obligation instead of alignment. I started noticing how often I dismissed my own instincts because they did not sound practical enough. Choosing myself didn't look like burning everything down. It looked like small, quiet changes. It looked like asking harder questions about how I wanted to spend my time. It looked like experimenting without knowing where it would lead. It looked like letting go of identities before I knew what would replace them. That was terrifying. There's a moment when you choose yourself and realize that you're stepping into unknown territory without a map, and your brain hates that. Your nervous system hates that too. Fear shows up right on schedule, but fear is not a sign you're wrong. Fear is a sign you are leaving what is familiar. And I want to say this clearly. Fear is not a stop sign. Fear is often a threshold. Every time I crossed one of those thresholds, confidence followed later, not before, later. Confidence came after I spoke up when my voice shook. Confidence came after I tried something and survived being bad at it. Confidence came after I disappointed people and lived through it. Confidence is built through movement. This is something I wish I had understood earlier. You do not think your way into confidence. You act your way into it. Every small aligned action becomes evidence. Evidence that you can trust yourself, evidence that you can handle discomfort, and evidence that you can choose yourself and keep going. I think one of the hardest parts of choosing yourself is how quiet it is. There is no ceremony, there's no external validation at first. Sometimes choosing yourself looks like sitting alone at night, feeling deeply unsure and still deciding to listen. Sometimes it looks like staying when it would be easier to distract yourself. Sometimes it looks like leaving when it would be easier to stay. There were many moments where I wished someone would just tell me what to do, where I wished there was a clear sign that said, this way. But what I learned is that the sign is often the persistence of the question itself. If something keeps returning, if it keeps asking to be acknowledged, that is information. Choosing yourself does not require you to have it all figured out. It requires you to stop betraying what you already know. That was a big one for me. I had spent years overriding my own instincts because they did not align with what I thought I should want. And once I stopped doing that, even in small ways, things began to shift. Not all at once, slowly. I want to talk for a moment about the fear of being wrong. This fear kept me stuck longer than anything else. The fear that I would choose myself and regret it. The fear that I would disappoint people. The fear that I would end up worse off. But here's what I discovered. Staying stuck was already costing me something. It was costing me energy. It was costing me honesty. It was costing me presence. Choosing yourself does not guarantee ease, but not choosing yourself guarantees resentment. And resentment has a way of leaking into everything else. There was a point where I realized that even if I failed, even if things did not unfold the way I hoped, I would still have myself. I would still have integrity and I would still know that I listened. That mattered more to me than certainty. If you're listening to this and you have recently made a decision to choose yourself and nothing has changed yet, I want you to hear this. You are not behind. You're not wrong. You're not imagining it. You are in the in-between. And the in-between is where identity shifts before reality catches up. Stay there. Keep listening to that small voice. Keep taking steps that feel aligned, even if they feel insignificant, even if no one else understands them yet. The outer world follows the inner one, not the other way around. I think we underestimate how brave it is to choose yourself quietly, to choose yourself without a safety net, to choose yourself without needing to explain it perfectly. If something inside you has been asking for more, you do not need to justify it. You don't need to make it sound reasonable, and you do not need to wait until you feel ready. You just need to stop ignoring it. Choosing yourself might feel premature. It might feel shaky. It might feel like you're stepping into something without permission. That does not mean it's wrong. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It's honest. And honesty has a way of reshaping everything over time. If this resonated with you, sit with it. You do not need to act immediately. Just listen more closely and trust that the voice that keeps returning is doing so for a reason. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and of course, keep flying upstream. If today's conversation sparked something in you, take a moment to sit with it. You can find more episodes and resources at flyingupstreampodcast.com. And if this show speaks to you, the best way to support it is to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who is ready to question the path they are on. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and always keep flying upstream.